hit the music and then we'll kickstart our morning off with a karakia for this morning. Bye. O, kia hihiria ke tātou, hei timatanga, kia hihiria ke tātou. Mana wa mai e te rangi e tūnei, mana wa mai e te papairaro nei. Whanohia ngā uka waki waho, kia tau te ai onuku, kia tau te ai orangi. Whano mai ko ngā ureka ki roto, kia tau mai ai ngā hua nui o te rā. Kia turuturu ōwhiti whakamaua, kia tēnā, haumie, huie, tai ki. Tēnā rā tātou. Rarau mai tātou katoa ngā kanohi ngā mata no tāwahi no ngā rohe puta noa te motu ngā hauewha tēnā rā koutou ko rarau mai mo tēnei kaupapa. Te koe tēnei kōreri piti mo te tokuinga. My name's Elizabeth Motu. I've got our team here. We have Kelly, our team from the lab. We also have our ahi tere tere. We've also got Lee, in the background that will run all the stuff in the background. Lee, put your hand up, show who you are. And we've also got our ahi tere tere, Debbie, and our manuhiri for the day, which is Sacha. But I also wanted to pay mention to Jackie Chen, who has also joined our Practice Foundation team, who is our illustration person for the 2025 series. Unfortunately, however, today Jackie is not available today as she has other kaupapa that she needs to attend to. But the illustrations will be published from today's session in 2 weeks' time. And that'll be sorted. If you've got any issues at all that you'd like to just flick a message through to Kelly if you've got any issues with the from here or to breakout groups. Kelly's there if you need. No reira, me mehira kia tātou katoa, koutou ko hau mai ki tēnei wahanga o tātou. This is our Practice Foundation. The purpose of our Practice Foundation is to provide a space for those working in the public sector who are working in complex environments to come together with like-minded people. So we would like to acknowledge that this is a difficult time for many people and would like to encourage and support everyone to take good care of themselves and each other as much as they can. We hope you find coming together for today's session restorative. Again, as I mentioned before, any concerns you can mention that to Kelly, and Lee will be in the background sorting everyone out. But we also wanted to let everyone know that we're not allowing any bots like Read AI to attend the session. This is in order to keep this place safe for people to connect. If you're unable to attend, most of our sessions are recorded and can be watched online. So the rhythm of our day today. This session is exploring how mātauranga Māori perspectives can help government and funders navigate complex issues to achieve better outcomes. In conversation, we have Dr. Debbie Goodwin, he tūhoi, he whakatohea, he Ngāti Pākehā, also Sacha McMeeking from Ngāi Tahu, tēnā ko kaurua tēnā, me mihi ka tika kia kaurua, wā tātou. Ahi tere tere wā tātou manuhiri tēnā kaurua. We'll share, they'll both share how holistic relational approaches can offend new ways of holding complexity and shaping more effective social investment. They'll share insights from a soon-to-be published report providing kaupapa Māori recommendations for social investment. So today, what does our 90-minute session look like? We've got some whakawhanaunga parts that will be incorporated in our session with small breakout groups. You'll hear a conversation between Debbie and Sacha, and then go back into breakout groups from some reflection time. Then we'll all come back together as a whole group and then share kōrero, hei wānanga kōrero mā tātou katoa, mō ngā kōrero ko tuku mai kia tātou I te rangi nei. So we'll share all the kōrero based on the thoughts and the kōrero that's been shared with us today. Tēnā rā tātou. So what we'll do for the next 10 minutes is we'll share in our breakout groups. We'll share for 10 minutes. for us to consider these following parts. In today's session, we have Debbie and Sacha are going to be talking about the impacts and the outcomes. And I'm sure you'll hear all the experience today, but trying something in our work, something that's unexpected, and sometimes something is even better happening as a result. So, as well as introducing yourself, would like you to share an example of an unexpected impact, either from your personal or professional life. So, whakaaro He Ara kōrero, what is something that you can share from your personal or professional life? To kickstart our whakaaro, Sacha is going to share an example of an unexpected impact. So ka hoatu te roa rākau kōrero ki a koe e te whanaunga no Ngāi Tahu, hui rapa ko kō wai he kurahuna ko karo ka hore ia, ka hore I te ki a koe e Sacha, ki a koe te rākau kōrero.
Tēnā koutou, tuatahi te tuakane, te tuahine, kua whakatūwhero tō tātou hui, ka nui te mihi aroha ki a koe. Kia koutou, mauri ora ki te whānau, kua hara mai nei. I think the wonderful thing about changing the world is that often things aren't what they seem to be. So to offer a small koha into the whanaungatanga section, just want to talk about two of my favourite impact creators in the world. One of them was the most effective public health initiative that got 50 million people worldwide out and about moving their tinana, and it wasn't a public health initiative. It was Pokemon Go. And the second one that I really love is Iron Māori. I'm not brave enough to get into lycra myself, but we look at Iron Māori and it looks like it's this hauora physical fitness program, but what we all know from those that we love and care about who participate in Iron Māori is that it's so much more. People come out of Iron Māori and they change jobs, or they leave abusive relationships, or they pursue education. And I think those are a beautiful counterpoint of examples that the eyes we bring to looking for impact need to be opened wider, and to really celebrate the messy human reality that goes with changing the world. So anei he koha, and I'll flick the rākau back so that everyone can connect on their favourite examples of impact.
Ka pai tēnā koe, Sacha. So we'll start to put everyone into breakout groups for everyone to share your whakaaro on that snippet and the impacts in your life or personal life or professional life. Morena, no mai hoki mai, welcome back. Here's hoping that everyone had an awesome conversation with each other and everyone got to learn a bit more about your friends that were in the breakout room. So mihi ana kia koutou katoa. No mai hoki mai. Now we're going to get straight into it. We have our tere, so we have Dr. Debbie Goodwin. He tūhoi, he whakatohea, he ngai Pākehā, has a keen focus on supporting iwi and Māori initiatives which progress Māori developments, as well as community-based initiatives to build their evaluation capacity. Debbie is an executive member of Mātauranga, Māori Evaluation Association. And we also have Sacha McMeeking from Ngāi Tahu, Ngāti Mutunga, as an academic lawyer, activist and strategic consultant. Sacha was instrumental in synthesizing He Ara Waiora, a framework that helps the Treasury understand Māori perspectives on wellbeing from discussions amongst leaders in mātauranga Māori. No mātou katoa te whiwhi, ko rarau mai enei tokorua I waingana I a tātou. Nō reira, kia koe Debbie, kia koe te rākau kōrero.
Tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa. Ko wai au ko whaiarihia, ko hiwaro te ngā maunga, ko te rewa ko roi mata nā marae, ko tūhoi ko whakatohea, ko Ngāti Pākehā hoki nā iwi. Ko Debbie Goodwin tōku ingoa, he kai aro matawai hau, he kai ranga hau, he kai whiri mō ngā rātonga hauora. So some of the work that I do is in evaluation, research and supporting collaboration amongst mental health services for child and adolescent in the Waikato. So those are some of the mahi that I do. But thank you for joining us today. We're here to actually listen to Sacha's whakaro, and really excited to have Sacha come and talk to us and bring some beautiful whakaro for us to kind of think about how we might be thinking about social investment and mātauranga Māori. Kaore au he tino pukinga ki te mātauranga. So I am definitely not an expert in mātauranga Māori, but I know all of you out there have expertise in particular areas, and we can kind of draw on all of that expertise today. So as we listen to Sacha and then do breakouts and have kōrero, it would be great for you to kind of share your expertise, but also be listening to others' whakaro. So just before we get into having a kōrero with Sacha, welcome, and would you like to just introduce yourself in any way? Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou anō, hiuri o tahu pōtiki, engari ko tētahi ongonga ki ana tumutunga hoki, ka nui te mihi aroha ki o koutou, nā mihi miharo ki o koutou e tō mahi Puhunu, and ki te Auckland Co-Design Lab. He fangirl ahau for a long time, so I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and it's just lovely to connect with you all.
Sure. So we're here today to think about mātauranga Māori perspectives and social investment. We were really excited to learn that you will be publishing a report providing kaupapa Māori recommendations on social investment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and some of the whakaro that you're pulling together?
Well, nā mihi, I guess the starting point is I'm quite optimistic about social investment. I'm not entirely sold, but I'm definitely bringing a spirit of optimism, because I think the driving intention of how do we change the world better and faster is a shared concern. And the principles, I think, are sound. If our driving goal is to uplift human potential and dignity, the driving principles of focusing on preventative or root cause approaches, being really clear about what works, and using data and evidence well, I think that's sound. But I haven't drunk the Kool-Aid, and the reason I haven't drunk the Kool-Aid is because I can't read the ingredients on the back. And so what we're trying to do with this paper is put some recommendations into what the ingredients on the back of those principles should be. And I think our key message is that kaupapa Māori has a remarkably powerful way of engaging with root causes or preventative solutions, but we're at high risk of blink and you'll miss it because of its characteristics, kind of the reasonably immature state of the language, I think, in a wider sense, about impact pathways and impact mechanisms. And I think the main reason for that is we've all been brought up in the cult of linearity. Thanks to the Enlightenment and everything that's happened since, we expect to see a straight line between problem and solution. And that's neat and tidy. But I think if the focus is on preventative or root cause approaches, we've got to bring really different eyes. The root cause solutions or preventative solutions are primarily geared to catalyzing trajectory change. Someone is on a particular pathway, things happen to divert, catalyze, trigger, inspire, whatever the appropriate language might be, a trajectory change into a different pathway. And I think that we haven't collectively got lots of experience in looking for what those trajectory change mechanisms are and what the impact pathways are for catalyzing trajectory change. So what we want to do is put some language and some thinking around if root cause work is trajectory changing work, what are the characteristics of successful ways of doing it that we've taken from the kaupapa Māori social change initiatives that we know and love as part of a multi-year research project on different kaupapa Māori approaches to change. And I think the first one is really familiar, and that's just the philosophy. Really familiar, but I think actually when it comes to rubber hitting the road, we're not that great at implementing it. The whole language of strengths-based, I'm not sure that that is widely implemented with depth and integrity. And so we've been thinking about trying to reframe that philosophy of trajectory transformation as saying that we will have trajectory change when trajectory change is chosen. And that relies on agency and assets and autonomy, which to us is a mana motuhake philosophy to creating impact. And I think there's immense richness in there. That in our political context right now is unlikely to be well understood. But I think what is capable of being more deeply understood in this context is the second set of recommendations that we want to talk to, which is impact pathways. So what is the causal pathway to trace impact being catalyzed and emerging? And the key argument there is that linear approaches, short, direct routes, are very unlikely to trigger trajectory change. To trigger trajectory change, you've got to engage with a deeper level of determinants and a multiple array of determinants. And I want to talk about that a little bit more in the way that we're framing complex causation. So we think that kaupapa Māori approaches to social impact have got a really powerful way of engaging with multiple determinants, engaging with complex causation. But some of the tricks to complex causation-based solutions is that they are potentially not wholly predictable. And that's something that if social investment is going to be well designed, we've got to have a policy architecture that can recognize unpredictability, that can recognize that there may be wee wawa approaches to how impact is created, and that not only is that not a problem, but that is the secret sauce. We've got to break away from the cult of linearity to embrace what actually affects change. And then the third part of the recommendations is about the distinctive impact mechanisms. So what is it that creates impact, particularly trajectory change? And I think lots of these are well known, but they're not consistently languaged. So if people are going to choose a future that they have reason to value, there's a restoring of self. There's a breaking of horizons about the things that they never previously believed themselves capable of, or places that they couldn't see themselves. There's the inculcating hope and aspiration and belief. There's lots of beautiful examples of things like ragamuffin rangatahi who were really great at generating money, but they were really footloose about spending money. And it wasn't that they had a capability gap, it's that they had an aspiration gap. They couldn't see a life pathway before them. So I think being able to see those mechanisms so that we don't reach for a comfort blanket of capability development, because I think we quite often misdiagnose capability as the hammer that we need to use. When if we're looking at these complex pathways and shifting trajectories, there's lots of other deeper and potentially intangible mechanisms. So in a really practical sense, what are the things that we want to recommend that social investment policy thinks about? I think one is about portfolio balancing. So there is some need for really linear, direct solutions. That's triage and crisis intervention and all of those types of things. They are valid, they're important. And trajectory change to engage with root causes is necessary to create durable transformation. And I think that if we had a portfolio approach to balancing our social investment, where this much goes into triage or crisis, and this much goes into trajectory change, transformational approaches that engage with root causes, that then gives us the ability to cascade it into distinctive criteria that respond to the characteristics of deep and transformative change and engage with complex causation. And then into the data, because if we're engaging with trajectory change, the time horizons for impact measurement need to match the arc of impact. We need to have potentially an experimental approach to how we collect impact data. If we're looking for trajectory changes, the impact measures will be more attenuated than we're typically comfortable with. And somehow we've got to find some way in the data to embrace unpredictability. And I think what we're, the kind of singular goal of this paper is to try and bring different eyes to how we expect to see impact. When we were developing He Ara Waiora, Dame Nader was really fierce on, it was about the eyes that we bring. And I think just to wrap the response to this question, there's this beautiful story that I love of one of our revered tribal leaders who talks about when he was a young fellow, he got given the job of putting salt and pepper shakers out at the marae. And if we bring our traditional eyes for impact, then we look at the salt and pepper shakers and we try and commission programs that are about lots of people putting out salt and pepper shakers at the marae. But the eyes that are helpful is saying that the salt and pepper shakers are utterly irrelevant. It wouldn't have mattered whether he was doing that or peeling the potatoes or cleaning the wharepaku. The impact mechanism that was going on there is someone he loved and was possibly a little bit scared of, gave him a job and a responsibility and a place to belong in a particular way. And you can trace where he is now and how he operates in the world back to that kind of trajectory shifting experience. And I think what we really hope to do with this paper is to move the policy architecture away from focusing on the salt and pepper shakers to see those trajectory shifting mechanisms and impact pathways that really matter.
Oh, kia ora, Sacha. There's a lot in that kōrero. There's just so much that you've just shared and, taken us very briefly over the report and your key kind of kaupapa there. You talked a lot about the linear, not doing the linear thinking as much, but thinking about the complex issues and how we might do that. Can you share a little bit more about your mahi, say, with He Ara Waiora, and how that worked kind of upstream and downstream, the continuum of that?
Ngā mihi. So I think like lots of us, I spent lots of time being lost in the forest of outcomes frameworks and determinants frameworks. and found it really frustrating that they were all not wrong, but they didn't match. There were lots of apples and oranges, and none of them were wholly right. And when we were developing He Ara Waiora, Papa Mānuka Henare gifted in a framework that he developed in the 1980s for the Royal Commission on Social Policy, and spent a good couple of years knowing that was precious, that was a koha, but having absolutely no idea what it meant. And I think, like lots of our pukinga and taniwha, it takes time to work through the full meaning of their gift, and eventually had the epiphany moment of what I think Papa Mānuka gifted in was a framework for being able to see the relationship between all determinants and all systems levers to affect change. So Lee, if you could please share this slide, which is lost half of its bits, but that's okay. We are agile and can and talk to the bits that you can't see for technical and inexplicable reasons. So Papa Mānuka's framework had the 4 layers: kaua, tikanga, ritinga, and āhuatanga. And I appreciate that across the motu, there will be different approaches, and you might want to move the names around and change the definitions. My perspective is this is Papa Mānuka's framework, so changing the language or moving them around is above my pay grade. And I'll just try and give effect to his thinking. And what he would talk about is that kaua is the moral imperative or the paradigm. It's the big idea that frames something. Tikanga being all of the structural, institutional realities. Ritinga being the behavioural components, and āhuatanga, that which can be seen. And what I think he has done with elegance and sophistication is, in one sense, it gives us a way of understanding all of the determinants of impact. And so that's the bit on the left side. So if we think about how impact is normally created, it's normally down in that āhuatanga space, and that we respond to the visible and observable realities, the direct problems that we can see. But if we follow this way of thinking, it would be that we need to engage with the determinants going further upstream. So ritinga, we need to engage with the behavioural determinants, the motivation, the capability, all of that type of stuff on an individual level, and equally the things on a behavioural level that shape communities and how they behave together. We have to engage with the structural and institutional realities, whether it's about changing those or how people and communities navigate and interact with them. And at the furthest point upstream, these are the intrinsic factors: identity, meaning, hope, belonging, all of those kind of things that within He Ara Waiora we talk about as the ends of wellbeing. But I think this framework has relevance beyond Te Ao Māori, and however we might frame those intrinsic things, identity, connection to Wairoa, that these are being able to engage with those intrinsic factors at a kaua level. That's the source of trajectory change. We won't choose a different life if the story of our identity doesn't match a different pathway. We won't, particularly if we've come from a marginalised or oppressed community. I don't think that you can have internal self-belief without some precursor work and manaki and identity and belonging and meaning and purpose and all of that kind of stuff. So I think on that impact determinant side, what this framework does is it gives us a way of locating where an intervention intersects. is it an intervention which is singular and just intervenes at one juncture, or is it an intervention that engages at multiple points upstream, and being able to correlate how that impact mechanism connects to different points in this upstream downstream space. And I think this is really powerful because it enables us to stop talking past each other. You know, people come in with their disciplinary obsessions. We are capability deliverers, so we should do everything about capability, or we do some kind of talk therapy, so we need to do that. And I think kaupapa Māori's remarkable magic is that it engages, if not at all levels on this continuum, at least at multiple points. And I think about examples like kōrero, where they're doing financial literacy and housing provision, which kind of looks like it's a capability development, āhuatanga space intervention, but how they do it means that they're really deeply engaging with the kaua level intrinsic quality of life factors. They're connecting people to tupuna narratives and the financial abundance which has existed within our communities, which contributes to people restoring and building communities and having these sticky factors. So I think I would just really love it if with social investment, there could be some structured way of understanding the relationship between interventions at different points in the upstream, downstream continuum. I think this framework has got real value, but it doesn't have to be this framework. There just has to be some framework to be able to understand where an intervention sits in that upstream, downstream, if we're going to genuinely engage with root causes. And we need to be nuanced in how we expect impact to occur at each of those different points. And then on the right-hand side, there's the kind of translation into the wider systems levers that you can use. But I'm conscious that my time management is rubbish, and I don't think that the systems levers are as important for thinking about social investment and how we might design that policy architecture is thinking about these impact determinants. And before I stop belatedly, and just say one thing that I think in the tikanga layer, that's where the social determinants of health sit. So I think what this framework does is it collects the other things and enables that exist in the world, social determinants of health. You can kind of see where different bits of different outcomes frameworks exist, and it enables them to sing in harmony rather than competing with each other as to which way of understanding outcomes is better. And then I think for the way that we think about impact, it also forces us to think about the interrelationship between material conditions and these deeper kind of intrinsic factors. I think Maslow has been the air that we've breathed without realizing it for a long time. And we've got a treatment of impact and impact pathways that really prioritizes engaging with the material conditions of a good life. And only once you've dealt with those material conditions can you get up to the self-actualization, meaning, purpose, belonging. And I think the magic of kaupapa Māori is that it entirely inverts that. Our kaupapa Māori things that engage with material conditions, a bit like the salt and pepper shakers, the tangible thing is often a decoy for the redefinition of self and meaning and purpose and belonging. It's a door rather than the end destination. And I think that being able to distinguish between doors and end destinations is something we have to get increasingly sophisticated at if we're going to level up how we try and create social impact. So I'll stop talking now. And I I'm really conscious that this way of thinking is emergent. We're putting this paper out because we're trying to solve it. We're trying to think about it. We don't think we've got the right answer, and what we put out into the world won't be the final form. And we really value being able to engage and explore it and test it. So thank you for this opportunity.
Ka pai tēnā koe, Sacha. E mihi ana ki o kōrero. Thank you very much for that. What we'll do now is we've got a pātai for everyone to go into breakout rooms. The pātai is an application question. So the questions are, the pātai are, how could you implement this kōrero within your work? So that's that one. How could you put this kōrero into effect in your day-to-day mahi, in your BAU? What is happening and what needs to happen to implement this kōrero. So there's some of the kōrero that we got from Sacha is the intervention of how we can do these things. So as a rōpū, is there reflection you'd like to share back in your rōpū that Lee will put you into now? Don't be shy, patua te whakamā, and share all the kōrero, the good kōrero that we are about to, that we've been listening to. So,
kia ora koutou, welcome back everyone. We'll just wait for everyone to get back into their into the main group. Welcome back everyone. I'm sure you all had a great whakaaro and kōrero in the breakout groups. You know, just rethinking what I heard from Sacha's kōrero this morning. You know, there were some amazing pieces of whakaaro there, and the things that stuck out to me was things like understanding what are the ingredients on the back of, you know, what kind of social investment whakaaro. The strength-based approach, we need to go a bit deeper with integrity around that. What does that really look like? Let's not just talk about it, but let's think more deeply about doing that with integrity. What does that mean for us? The thing about going wee wawa, actually, yes. Well, first, trajectory of change. What are those trajectories that can kind of create a change, the change in the graph that, you know, instead of going along like this, we're gonna have some sort of trajectory of positive change. What are those mechanisms that create that change? But also understanding the journey could be a bit of a wee wawa as well. So not just realizing there will be some of that navigating up and down, in and out and around. And so I'm just going to invite everyone to write in the chat any of your whakaaro that you had from your rōpū, any questions or reflections that you talked about, or questions for Sacha that you have. So if people can just put those into the chat, and we might have a bit of a wānanga around that for the next 15 minutes or so, just before we wrap up the session. One of the things as you're doing that, don't be shy, just put it in there. As you're doing that, one of the things that I thought would be helpful to share is some of the ways that we bring our whakatauki into our work, into our mahi, and how it guides our mahi. So one of the things that I've done recently with Etu Whānau was an evaluation piece where we're looking at what changes happen in communities and how. And we've used a whakatauki and a whakaaro Māori to analyse that and to understand it. And one of the things is that understanding the complexity of all that happens in communities. So the whakatauki kia uru ka hikatea te tū was the guiding analysis for us. So understanding that the kahikatea stand, the group of kahikatea trees are our whānau, our communities, and all of that happens around that. Why the kahikatea stand strong? Because of the roots that intermingle with each other and create that strength. And also the ngahere is a great metaphor for complexity and what happens in complexity for change and for strength and growing. So that's just one of the ways that I think about, instead of a linear approach, we think about the complexities of all of that create the change for our whānau. So Lydia, do you have a pātai or whakaaro that has been shared that you want to bring forward?
One thing, so we haven't, I'm unsure if everyone had the opportunity to share in their groups. We have some that probably didn't get the opportunity to dive deep, have your snorkel gear on to dive deep into some of the kōrero that you all shared in your rōpū. However, I'm just going to give you a moment, maybe a minute, for everyone to jot down what were some things that triggered you in your conversation in your when you were in your breakout groups. I'll give you a minute now to think about those things that you really want to dive into, that you want to talk about. So we'll give you a minute now. If you can jot them all your whakaaro down in the what is it, message form, the chat forum. Add your whakaaro now if you can, and we can start pinpointing some of the gems that were in the kōrero. So we have, is it Jenny Artong mentioning that mātauranga Māori is fluid? Yes, it is. What do you want to talk more to that, Jenny Artong?
Sorry, no, it was more a question because we're currently going through an evaluation of our Healthy Families Initiative. And so a question that I'm going to have for the evaluator is how does, or the comparative data they're going to use, how does it embrace the unpredictability of change, that it just doesn't happen overnight?
Kia ora, Jenny. Tēnā koe. Tammy, I see you've got material versus intrinsic, recognizing the unpredictability. Can you tell us about some of the unpredictabilities that you've come across in your mahi?
I think it sort of goes back to what I think Angie had put in her comments in terms of our whānau, our whānau, our hapori, the unpredictability, and just listening to, was it Jenny, in terms of them looking at the evaluation and how that looks. Yeah, it was just interesting but then I think Sacha nailed it right at the end around how do you actually make all outcomes start to sing in harmony, because they're actually in isolation of themselves. Because when we start to look at outcomes and what it is for whānau, we isolate them. And actually, but if they all just be one waiata, like the waiata that we came into, it'll just make it so much simple and easy for us in the mahi that we do to actually reach those aspirations for our community. But those were just thoughts, and I just was interested. But yeah.
Tēnā koe te mehena. Is anyone, if anyone's got any pata that they'd like to add in as well, whilst we've got Sacha here with us to kōrero about this topic, this kaupapa. If you've got any pata, jot that down so that we can have a talk about it and have a wānanga about those things. I see with, who is it? We've got some kōrero here from, so I'm just trying to find it. I think Kathy from Healthy Families Waitakere. I know you're talking about the framework. You enjoyed the framework. Is there any part that you think off the cuff that you could probably implement this into your mahi?
Kia ora. Yeah, we were definitely thinking, because we use the Hautu Waka framework once we're actually in an initiative and in an innovation that we're doing. But I was thinking that this framework would be really good before we start that, when we're even working out where do we want to go. So that kind of like bubbling ideas, when we're talking to the community about what their needs are, they're often talking, and this is what we talked about in our group, they're often talking about the immediate needs of, like we're in a flood street, we want those houses gone that are rough, we want the street, we want some grass back, we want more playgrounds, we want marakai, which are very immediate needs. But actually, if we could use this framework to go, well, okay, where are those in the flow, in the stream, and how do we get further up, it'll stop us like focusing on that. It's the salt, it's putting out the salt and pepper. So it's not, it's what's the need further up that we're actually addressing. And that if we can do that, then we can actually get a wider scope. We've got more chance of actually changing that trajectory of where that community is going. So that was what I was thinking about, using it while we're even deciding what are we gonna focus on, where are we gonna put our energy. I think it would help that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Have you got any kōrero to add to that, Sacha?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two ways that this thinking can be applied. One is to influence policy architecture and machinery of government, but the much more valuable way, I think, is how we level up our own practice. I'm always conscious that about Henry Ford's quote, that if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said fast the horses. And I think that the most important responsibility we have when we're engaged in change making is the process of meaning making. What are people saying without saying? And how do we use this tool or other tools like it to make meaning in a really deep way that responds to the real realities and the things that people might not be able to articulate, because they're intangible, and but we can still think about them. And I think when it comes to impact creation, if it was easy, we would have done it already. It's not easy. We've got to employ the powers of imagination. And if imagination doesn't hurt, if it doesn't hurt our brains, I don't think we're trying hard enough. I think we still need to land somewhere that is simple and clean and clear, but getting to that place of simplicity should hurt and it should be messy.
Kia ora. Kia ora. We've got one pātai here, Sacha. Who is the author of this framework that you've used just a moment ago, so that we're able to, so that the listeners are able to credit him as well, if you can answer that pātai.
I will drop a link in the chat. This and a whole range of tools for trying to do complex causation mapping and work through different levers are in a handbook for He Ara Waiora. And it's, so the whakapapa of this is back to the late and revered Professor Mānuka Henare, but it's been evolved by many hands.
We've got a comment also from Roimata regarding kawa setters. Do you want to ask the pātai there, Roimata?
I was more putting it there as a provocation, but e mihi ana kia koe te tahi. More around, you know, we want to work, do and be in this manner and in this way, but often we are segmented and boxed in by red tapers. Those red tapers being the policymakers, awamomo. So what does it look like? And I'm conscious of an example that I've seen firsthand, she's actually online, of what it looks like to completely change the kawa setters. But it's the courage to be for the courage setters to set this trajectory and to set this way of thinking. Just the pātai was around. Do you have any examples, or have you seen this in practice and in play, and that we might be able to garner or look back and go, oh yeah, there's a marker that we can emulate?
Aroha mai, I'm not sure that I quite got that question. Do you mean the kawa level story at a policy level, or how we're engaging with kawa level factors and impact approaches?
The people, more so looking at the people who are setting kawa in spaces. So in my work, I'm thinking about like the councillors or people that actually set the strategic outcomes for Auckland Council, or like, for example, a board as part of a a charitable organisation who just needs a change and a refresh of mind. Like, what does it take for an enabler to get rid of those and just be a bit more courageous in their manner and in their approach?
Yeah, that's a great question with no easy answer. I think one of the really important changes is about how we communicate this stuff. So we have tended to communicate trajectory change through rich narrative. We will tell deep stories of people, which if you're an accountant or a lawyer, takes you on a journey that you don't want to go on. So you never take the message from the deep story because they're looking for the tidy soundbite. So I think we've got to get better at the way we communicate the nature of impact, being able to sing to lots of different minds, from the accountants to the poets. The poets love rich narrative, but we've got to be able to talk about this in a way that the accountants can understand as well, particularly because they have lots of governance influence. And there are ways to do that, I think, so that things like the salt and pepper shaker story, it's short and clear, and if you can follow that up with being able to talk about this in a geeky mechanistic sense about what's actually going on, it provides the tangibility and the safety for the risk averse accountants. And ultimately, they've got a responsibility to embrace complexity as well. But I think what we've got control over is how we communicate about the nature of impact.
Kia ora, Sacha. One question, I'm not sure who brought it up, but it's what's needed for motuhake trajectory markers. Can you share some whakaaro on that?
I reckon that is kind of the next phase of creative work that needs to be done. And because I think we've got just an enormous density of outcome measures that exist in the world that are noisy and confusing, and we've got to tie them back to like that, some kind of structuring framework. So I think about because I think if we tie them back to that kind of structuring way of saying the upstream downstream continuum, we end up with less complexity about outcome measures because they're connected to what they're trying to do. So for one of the beautiful kaupapa I was working with, they do a very practical thing. They worked out that one of their most important impact measures was about cousins making memories together. Because what they're actually trying to do through this practical thing is facilitate retribalisation. Retribalisation isn't about how many people turn up to a maraehui. It's about the subtle things of beauty that create shared memories, because that's a community, right? And so getting to that kind of outcome measure, it took a long, messy time to get to that kind of simplicity. And I think, so I think we need a new pātaka that's got things organised in a different, clearer way, that is trying to get to the essence of what really matters. When you look through, it's not the salt and pepper shaker eyes.
Ka pai, beautiful kōrero. This has been really a rich, full hui or wānanga that we've had this morning. No thanks to both you, Sacha and Debbie, for your kōrero and your wānanga, giving everyone the opportunity to listen to your experiences, your mātauranga. So e mihi ana kia kaurua tahi. I whai wāhi te kōrero mai ki wenei hunga, e nei hunga pikoko, e nei taringa. o te motu, no reira, e kore a rika ngā kupu rerehua kia kaurua tahi. Thank you very much for everyone's time. So to close off our session, we've only got 5 minutes to close off the session, but just wanted to mention an acknowledgement to everyone that's come here today to listen to our kōrero, to our ahi tere tere. And our ringa waiwai that are out in the community making impacts. So mentioned before, Jackie's obviously not here, but an illustration will be posted with today's recording in 2 weeks' time for you to download, use and share. It will also be included in the invite for the next month's session. An invite also will be shared to everyone for feedback on the session and what did you like, what was helpful, what was useful. Please put it in your chat if there's any kōrero there that you'd like to gather. Also, a pānui for mihi to all participants. Sorry, thank you very much for everyone coming in on time. Sorry about the problems that we had earlier in Teams. But thank you again, thank you once, thank you twice, thank you 3 times when you come back next month. So e mihi ana kia koutou katoa. From Practice Foundation, we'd like to we'll send out all the invites for the next month coming. Next month's session also looks like that we have Dr. Ingrid Burkett, who will be joining us next month about the kaupapa of power of place-based evidence. So, nō reira, e te hunga pikoko e mihi ana kia tātou katoa, kia hoki pai atu koutou ki o koutou whānau, ki o koutou tari, mahi, do the work, work hard, work smarter, not work harder, but e mihi ana kia koutou, ngāri ngā waiwai i ngā, i tēnei tauma. Nō reira, kia hihiri a ke tātou, he whakakapika i tā tātou wahanga, a ko te tapu e nei kōrero ka whakairihia ki ngā pātu o tēnā whare. Kia tikana anō ai a tōna wai, kia turuturu o uta, kia turuturu o tai, te tuturu o whiti whakamaua, kia tēnā, haumie, huie, tā.
Ai, ki.
Tēnā koutou.